under the scorching glare of the desert sun, where the wind moaned across endless canyons like spirits trapped between worlds. An aging rancher named Cole Thatcher rode his horse along a forgotten trail, searching for a few missing calves that had wandered from his herd. Unaware that fate itself was pushing him toward something far greater than cattle, his keen ears caught a distant whimpering cry, thin and brittle like a dying branch snapping in the cold. So he pulled the reins and urged his horse toward a cluster of mesquite trees where he froze at the sight before him. An Apache girl, young and fierce-eyed even in her weakness, hanging by the wrist from a rough rope tied to a low branch, feet barely touching earth, sweat and dust painting streaks down her cheeks, clothes ripped, arms trembling with exhaustion, looking more like she'd been strung up as bait than prisoner, and Cole's heartbeat thundered as he leapt from his saddle, cutting her free with a swift flick of his knife before catching her limp body with surprising tenderness. He carefully carried her to the creek nearby, dipped his hat in water, and poured the cool liquid across her cracked lips until she coughed and opened weary eyes filled with terror, immediately trying to pull away. But Cole raised his palm slowly, voice soft as desert rain, promising safety, promising she was not in the clutches of those who hurt her. And though she did not speak his tongue, trust flickered across her gaze like fragile flame. With no time to spare, he lifted her onto his horse and returned to his ranch, ignoring the voices that rose in town, voices sharpened by fear and ignorance whispering that no good would come from housing someone different, voices that rattled windows and hearts, but never once wavered Cole's resolve, because something inside him, the memory of his lost daughter, maybe, refused to abandon this soul to vulture wings and desert heat. At the ranch, he cleaned her wounds, fed her stew, and offered blankets once owned by family long buried beneath prairie grass, while she watched him with wary curiosity, slowly realizing he had no chains, no commands, only patience. And as days passed, she learned to communicate through gestures, small smiles, the universal language of gratitude. Soon she began helping around the ranch, astonishing Cole with her ability to track cattle through thick brush, sense weather shifts before the sky told its secrets, soothe horses spooked by coyotes. But as her presence grew more familiar, rumors slithered back into town like rattlesnakes. Rumors carried by outlaw Jeb Crowley, a man whose scarred face and cold eyes simmered with hatred toward anyone not molded in his image, bragging loudly at saloons that he had caught the girl fair, that she belonged to him, that she'd fetch a high price from those who trafficked fear itself. When men around him drank enough whiskey, their judgment soured, and they formed a mob armed with torches, hammers, and cowardice, marching toward Cole's property under the cloak of midnight, demanding the rancher hand her over. But Cole stood tall on his porch, rifle gleaming in moonfire, refusing to surrender innocence to madness, voice cutting through the chaos like a thunderclap as he declared that no one, not tribe, not town, not outlaw, had claim to a single life but God above. And the mob hesitated, wavering beneath the weight of conviction, until Crowley himself lunged forward screaming, pistol raised. But faster than prairie lightning, Cole shot it clean from his hand, sending sparks and screams into the black night. The mob scattered like frightened birds, leaving Crowley writhing in dust, snarling promises of revenge. And though fear thickened the air, the girl stepped beside Cole, small hands shaking but her chin lifted, showing bravery that humbled the rancher to his bones. As the months rolled on like wagon wheels over rough terrain, she taught Cole herbcraft for injured cattle, tracking signs masked by wind, and silent methods of calming skittish horses, while Cole taught her English words, ranch repairs, and the quiet dignity of rising every day despite hardship, their bond weaving like leather through saddle rings, becoming something the land itself respected. Over time, neighbors noticed that cattle recovered faster, water sources improved through her knowledge, tension lowered at borders between settlements and tribal grounds, and children wandered to the ranch to hear ancient stories whispered from the firelight. Tales of hummingbirds who carried prayers, coyotes who played tricks on prideful hunters, and eagles who watched over the lost. Slowly, fence by fence, hearts changed until tribal elders arrived one crisp autumn morning, cloaked in respect, offering return and reunion. But the girl lowered her eyes, torn between the home of her blood and the home built of mercy. Cole, with more love than possession, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and told her she must choose freely, and after what felt like endless silence, she made a promise to visit her tribe, to carry her culture proudly, yet return to Cole's ranch where she had found not walls but shelter, not chains but healing. Crowley, consumed by rage, tried one last desperate ambush in a canyon where shadows made illusions, But the girl, guided by instincts older than every gun in the territory, led him toward a crumbling ledge he failed to notice. And when the ground gave way, he plunged into darkness, sealing his cruelty beneath the rocks forever. After that, townsfolk began bringing gifts of grain to share, asking quietly for knowledge she once guarded, forming networks of trade and peace between communities that once saw each other as enemies. And when Cole's hair silvered and steps slowed, he would sit on his porch and watch her tend fence lines with gentle efficiency, watching as the land flourished under cooperation rather than conquest, realizing that the world may be wild but hearts need not be. Travelers passing through still ask about her, whispering that the territory changed because compassion refused to bend, and though she never sought glory, every sunrise stains the sky with the quiet echo of her grit. Every hawk's cry seems to carry the lesson that one rescued life can rescue hundreds more. And now, as you sit by your own fire, phone light flickering against your hands, hear the boots on gravel, the distant howl of coyote, the creak of porchwood beneath old bones. And remember that history changes not by armies but by single acts of courage, single moments when someone chooses to help rather than turn away. If this tale gripped your heart like rains in a storm, if you want to keep riding deeper into the Wild West where legends are forged from dust and fire, then partner, tighten your saddle and subscribe. Smash that like, ring the bell, because more campfire stories are coming, hotter than frontier sun and wilder than a horse untamed. You don't want to miss a single ride.